Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. Please have a delve if it is your first time. I'm going to do a tag that was done years ago by a channel called A Cruel Reader's Thesis. They don't actually put videos out anymore, I don't think, but their bank of videos is really good. A Cruel Reader's Thesis. And they did a tag called the Top 10 Non-Fiction Book Tag. So I thought it'd be fun to do, especially as I've been kind of soul searching a little bit and realizing that my reading is so weighted on fiction and not non-fiction. I'm like questioning my relationship with non-fiction, but actually non-fiction does feature a lot in my entire body of reading. And obviously, if you know my channel, you know that I've got a degree in history, and that meant a lot of non-fiction reading of history, sociology, philosophy, religious studies, all sorts of different things that combine for the degree. So that's true. But I've got a variety of different things here, that some lighter than others, and there's a few history books in there, but I could have chosen so many. I've already just thought of some more that I couldn't get to because I'm a bit hampered at the moment that my the light in my loft is playing up, so there's no way I can go up and find a couple of books I was going to include. But these are good selections. These are 10 books that I think are really, really good, that I'd recommend. And if you're interested in any of these, then definitely seek them out. So first one is a book I've talked about a lot. It's a period of history I've talked about a lot as well. It's one of my all-time favorite history books. It's an amazing book, but it's very hard to get because it's not been available for ages. But if you can find it, it's edited by R.B. Dobson, and it's called The Peasants Revolt of 1381, and it's really, really incredibly detailed. It's got all the demands of the peasants and the march on London, the attitude to the king, the attitude of the king. And also the build-up as well, the way that the Peasants' Revolt and lots of revolts around Europe occurred because of the Black Death. So that wiped out so many people that the peasants were able to say, okay, we should have these conditions, and if you don't give them to me, I can go somewhere else and work, whereas they couldn't do that before. But the population had decimated so much that they didn't have the same kind of power over the peasants. But it didn't succeed. So you can find out more about that moment that's in that painting when they met with the king in this book. But yeah, it's a great book, The Peasants' Revolt of 1381. If you find any book about the revolt, then it'll be interesting. But this is the best one, I think. It's a big chunker of loads and loads of detail, and I will never get rid of this. Okay, the second one is another history book. I often think of this as my favourite history book. I sent it to someone recently. Not sure if they've read it, but if I find it, I'll definitely send it to other people. The World Turned Upside Down. So this is a phrase that was used at the time, but during the Civil War, the English Civil War, there were tons of radical factions that went beyond just the parliamentarians. So obviously the parliamentarians were radical in themselves because they were trying to change the power of the king and give more power to Parliament. And obviously they did succeed. But below them, you had the Levellers, which are the most famous of the radical groups. But you also had the Diggers as well. And you also had the Ranters as well. These were kind of religiously motivated, more extremist radicals. And all of that's put across in this great book, The World Turned Upside Down, by Christopher Hill. Christopher Hill was a little bit of an expert. He really delved really deep on this period of history. He's written tons and tons of books on this, partly because of his motivation as a socialist. So he is one of the Marxist historians, along with like Eric Hobsbawm and E.P. Thompson, people like that. But it's a really, really good spotlight on the kind of radical groups that don't really get mentioned a lot in other history books, or they have like passing mentions in the other history books. So yeah, it's a really, really good book, The World Turned Upside Down. And that's, oh, this came out in, when did this one come out? 1972. Yeah, 1972. This is a Penguin version, as you can see there. But the original came out in 1972. Okay, the next one, you may know about this already, but it's an absolutely incredible book. It's one of many books. There's actually seven books that make up the whole autobiography of Maya Angelou, and this is the first one, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So this originally came out in, hold on, 1984. No, 1969. This originally came out in 1969, and it's been reprinted. It's been very influential. It's very, very important. Her life, it's quite tough to read. Her life has been very eventful, but she's a great writer. The way she puts it across is brilliant as well. But I think it's an essential read. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, part of the series of books that make up her autobiography. And catch her poetry if you can. Oh. Okay, this one is one that, again, I've mentioned this before in videos, but I can't do this video without mentioning this. This is like a book that I absolutely love. It's called Reaching into Thought: The Minds of the Great Apes. And it's by several people, but it's edited by Anne Russon, Kim Bard, and Sue Taylor Parker, all academics who study the primates. And it's got new evidence that was recently discovered when the book came out. I've had this book a long time though, and it's got all the different ways that their society works, lots of things that have happened in the long-term investigations into their lifestyles and into their thought processes, into laboratory experiments as well, the social and ecological aspects of their environments, the domains that they live in, and yeah, it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. So if you can get hold of this, Reaching into Thought: The Minds of the Great Apes, it's phenomenal. This is one, we're going to delve into music now. There's only 2 music books. I could have done tons and tons of music books. Maybe I'll do another one. But this is Alan Lomax. Alan Lomax is a significant part of recording American history, specifically the development of the blues and the folk tradition in America, and the way that all these other things like gospel and jazz and that kind of thing have come from the blues, and the way that the blues came from traditions that were brought about through slavery, like the work songs and the spirituals. All this is put across really well here, but the development of the blues from that is really documented here really well, and he's kind of in one-to-one contact with the some of the major players in the early days of the blues. And it's a fascinating and very important book, The Land Where the Blues Began, Alan Lomax. Okay, this one was really, really important to me. I've had this a long time. So this came out in, when did this come out? 2005. Yeah, first published 2005. It's Jacques Berlerneblau, Jacques Berlerneblau, and it's called The Secular Bible, with a subtitle, Why Non-Believers Must Take Religion Seriously. And it talks about the way that the Bible was created, different aspects of the Bible that's contradictory or raises doubts, some of the elements of the reason why the Bible is like it is, and how it was written. It's just fantastic. Some of the interpretations of the Bible, different scholars that have looked at it in different ways, and ultimately the question of who wrote the Bible. That's answered in this book. So yeah, it's a really, really good book, Secular Bible. If you're interested in the witch hunts in early modern Europe, then this is probably the best one. I think it's not enormous, and it's got tons of information in it. It was a essential source when I was studying it in my degree, and I just kept using it all the time. And it's really good. The Witch Hunt in Early Modern Europe by Brian Levac. He's like one of the experts on this. He wrote several books, and I've got a source book as well that's edited by him as well. So if you are interested in the witch hunts in early modern Europe, I think this is the one to go for. But there's a number of books around about the witch hunts. Some of them are very specific about particular cases, but this is more of a general overview that's really, really good. Okay, 3 more. This one is probably the one that's most recently read, so it's not been out that long either. But I wanted to include it because I thought it was such a unique book. When I was a kid, it looks like 2018, I think it says. I haven't got my glasses, I think it says 2018. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by dinosaurs. I thought they were really exciting. And I used to read these big children's encyclopedias, and I'd have these sort of pictorial coffee table books about dinosaurs. And I hadn't seen anything in this kind of detail. The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brasati. It's really good. It has been mentioned a few times on BookTube in the last couple of years, and really I think it's been universally praised. I thought it was really, really good. So I wanted to include this because it's a subject I think is fascinating. It's a very good book about it. So it was recently read, but yeah, I think it's a brilliant book. So if you are interested in dinosaurs, this gives you a lot of detail. It's quite subjectively written, so you kind of find out about paleontologists and the whole subject and study of paleontology while you're discovering about dinosaurs. It's really interesting because you're discovering the developments and how paleontology is done while you're discovering about the dinosaurs. So I think that's an interesting approach that he takes. It's really, really good. Okay, 2 more. I'm going to finish on probably the lightest one of all of them. But this one is a really good book by Daniel Levitin called This Is Your Brain on Music. And Daniel Levitin started off as a record producer and then became a neuroscientist. And this is a really easily presented, very easy to take in example of neuroscience that concentrates on music, the way music affects our brain, why music is so prevalent, why it affects us like it does, why foot tapping happens, for example, and how musicians are geared around music as well. It's really, really interesting book. So This Is Your Brain on Music is really good. And then one last one. Again, I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. I didn't really want to do any kind of non-fiction thing without mentioning Uncle Jim. And this is Street Gang, The Complete History of Sesame Street by Michael Davis. It's really good. I read it a few times, and the first time I read it, I just leapt through it. I just read it so quickly. I thought it was really interesting, really fascinating, brilliantly written. And, it's very comprehensively written. You do find out a lot about the way that Sesame Street developed. And if you have any kind of interest in it, if it was part of your childhood, or if, like me, you gave your kids Sesame Street as well, then you might be fascinated by this one. It's a really good book. So The Complete History of Sesame Street is my last one for this top 10 non-fiction book tag. Let me know below which ones you find interesting. And there's such a wealth of non-fiction out there that I'm kind of tempted to maybe do this every year. Don't know. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, everybody. Curiosity is what it's all about.
like to